Okay, good morning, folks. Let me know if you can hear my voice, please, and let me know if you can see the green screen. Let me know if you can hear me okay. And let's get started. Welcome to the 10-Minute Trades Trade Room, Empire State Manufacturing. My name's Lee Goldstein. I'm the trading director for 10-Minute Trades. Remember that all trades are for educational purposes. It is possible to lose money trading futures, so please trade carefully. If you're watching on a live stream, keep in mind that live streams are generally delayed, and you shouldn't trade real money from a live stream. Okay, so I want to be truthful. I was hoping to be able to show some brand new features this morning. We're not quite ready. It's going to be delayed a little bit, but I thought I might just show you a couple of things we don't normally do when we set up a trade with the software. Now, these are not official trades. There's no DMM until the API report this afternoon. You also keep in mind that we're in December. It's December 15th. It's almost Christmas. Historically, we do less and less trading this time of year because from a historical point of view, the news is less impactful. People aren't paying attention. It's very different now, though. We probably don't know everything that's going to happen because this is new. It's never been a situation like this before. With the world in the situation it's in. And with the US in the situation it's in. So, but I know that my boss isn't going to change the way he does things. So I would not expect. So what that means is we're going to get the week before Christmas, there will be less reports, and the week after there will be less reports. In other words, the week of New Year's, and that's what I'm saying is that historically, those are very quiet news trading times. So just out of curiosity, so last night at 2 a.m, there was a report that used to take place all the time at 4:30 in the morning Eastern time, okay? And it was the British, what I call the British jobs report. It has a different name. It's called the claimant count change, but it's an employment report. It's got employment rate. It's got employment change, and then something they call the claimant count change, which is people making claims. So it's essentially the British jobs report. It came out at 4:30, and you could see that this is a report we have on watch. So this would have been our trade candle. And that looks like, and the news was interestingly, so if you look at what they call the claimant count, it measures the change in the number of unemployed people, okay? Rising indicates weakness. A higher reading is negative, okay? Weakness in the labor market if the number is going up, okay? So here's what's interesting. So the number was going up by quite a bit. And the dollar went up, the British pound, not the dollar, the British pound went up. But in a sense, it almost doesn't matter. Because if you look at it, it's a tradable move. That's really the big issue. You had a candle. If you go to the top of the previous candle, it was 7, a total of 7 ticks. On any jobs report, I would probably have a bracket of 8 to 10 ticks on a big jobs report, 6 ticks, somewhere in there. So my point is the odds are pretty good that you would have had a safe trade. It wouldn't have broken your bracket to either side until the news came out. And then it would have pulled you into the trade and moved you up. My point is, for international members and for people that get up in the middle of the night to do some trading, the British claimant count report, certainly this month, looked like a very tradable report. So I have not been really spending much time with this report. So that would give me the impetus, the motivation to go back and look at the last 3 months prior, okay? Because that was a nice winning trade. And it was a report that we used to trade. We used to recommend to take live trades on it, and we had a setup, okay? So that's the reason that you go back and you look at the various reports to see what might have happened so that you could decide whether or not, is it time to bring the report back? There's a small Canadian report at 8:15, housing starts. We're here to look at manufacturing sales before the pandemic actually used to move a little bit with Canada, but it stopped working during the pandemic. And it was never a very big mover to begin with. We never had a trade report for it. It was just one of those reports that I always looked at. We don't have a trade report for Empire State Manufacturing, the New York report. And one of the reasons for that is because most of the time Empire State doesn't trade by itself. It also has a history of release time weirdnesses. Doesn't always release perfectly on time. It often has very big offsets that sometimes move the market and sometimes don't. So it's a pretty uneven, inconsistent report. I've tried setting up a mini micro setup for it, and it never has really kept consistent enough to make it a trade that you'd want to risk money on regularly. So there's a couple of ways you can approach a report that doesn't act consistently. You could look at it on different indexes, like I'm looking at the ES on the right chart. I'm looking at gold on the left chart. You could look for a squeeze signal on the main instrument you think is going to move. This used to be a report that was best on gold. I think this morning, I think my feeling is to look at it on 2 indexes to give us a feel for it. It might give us a feel what might be going on this week, how things are moving. And when I made an original mini report on it, the idea behind some of the mini reports is I would write them up, I would make them, a mini report. This is an example of what a mini report might look like. A junior journal, small journal, and then pretty much just a setup, not much history, and a video. But unfortunately, this report didn't quite hold up consistently. And again, part of the reason is because this particular report often doesn't trade by itself. It trades with other news. Some reports trade a lot by themselves or just with one other piece of news. Other reports, it seems like they just throw them wherever they feel like throwing them. But so December is software month. We're going to be talking about our software constantly. So let's talk about the software. You can see gold's making a new high. It's getting ready to open at 820. And the ES is calm. So it might be that the ES is going to be a little bit easier to trade on this report. But those are the things, if it were 2 minutes or a minute before the trade and gold was moving like this, it would make me very careful. Now, Canada just had a report and the housing start number was very good. Since we're here, so the housing news in Canada was very good at 8:15. It came out early. Okay. So you wouldn't have had a trade there. The news came out over a minute early. That ruined the trade. That's a trade that we've never even haven't really looked at. Gold, we're on 221. You're on February already. Now, is gold responding to Canada's housing report? It almost looks like it was, or was it just finding a new high? Could have been finding a new high. So if I were going to trade the Empire State, and Empire State, it's sort of like Richmond. It's sort of like that type of a report. There's different area manufacturing reports. That's what the news is. In other words, New York Empire State, Richmond is the Richmond area manufacturing report. So if I were going to set up a trade on this, I'd look for a bracket of 6 ticks. Okay. I would look for a target, first target of 4 ticks, second target of 10 ticks, a stop of 9 ticks. I'm going to leave it at 10 because gold is, you can see it's starting to calm down. We'll have to watch the open also. Leave the stop at 10. I think 10 is reasonable for a gold trade. The entry time, 8:30. In other words, I don't want to enter early. When we've studied this trade, we've noticed that this trade doesn't always release exactly on time. I like to label it. And then I said I would show you a feature that we normally don't always use, because we're going to be talking about software all December. Let's say your first target gets hit and you want to automatically move your stop. A lot of people don't even know our software can do that. So there's this field called target one stop move. When target is hit, it moves your stop loss from its current 10 tick position to the place you put it. And the way that you write it is break even +2, break even -2, and it can be uppercase or lowercase. So let's say if we hit our first target, we're going to move our stop automatically to break even. Okay. So that's a feature of the software. A lot of people don't know you can do it. And if you're trading 3 positions, you can move the target to, if it hits target 2, you can move the stop also. Okay. So I'm setting up a bracket of 6. 1 position for 4 ticks, 1 position for 10 ticks, a stop of 10 ticks. If I hit my first target, move my stop to break even, and then my entry time is 8:30. The type of trade is a breakout trade. That means it's going to create the brackets. I'm going to apply it and okay it. Then you can see the trade up on your control panel. And in order to turn a trade on, you have to enable it, right? So if you enable it, you'll see your logo. If you don't have a logo, it most probably means that your trade has not been enabled. Okay, so don't forget to look for the logo. That enables the trade. That tells you the trade is enabled. It's ready to fire off at the time that you said you want it to. You also have import and export prices with this report this morning. So I just want to see the US news. Now, with our software, you can also set up a second trade if you want to on a different index. So I can set up the same trade using the ES to see if the ES moves in a tradable manner. Bracket of 5, I think, is acceptable. 1 target for, let's go make it small, 3 ticks on the ES, 12 ticks, a stop of 10. Entry time of 8:30 also. It's also a breakout trade. I like to label the trade where it says label so I can tell the difference. And I'll show you what I mean. So that's the ES trade. Apply it, okay it. So then when I turn on the ES trade, you also get your logo. So you can test 2 different indexes on the same event, okay? I'm hearing news in the background. There's some information about the Moderna vaccine. So you could see the ES is moving a bit as well. sometimes the little reports, like I call these little reports, can be overshadowed by world news. And that's one of the reasons why we've always taken the approach to trade the bigger moving reports. There, of course, we know that there are many reports that, many events that take place, and they don't always move the markets enough to give you a tradable result, okay? That's why you might not see a report for them. If you don't see a report, it means that over time, the history of that particular report has not had a large impact on the markets. A lot of reports change, though. They do change. Let's check our time. We want to check our sync. So in order to check that you're in sync, we go to the website time.is, and it tries to put your computer in sync, and if it succeeds, then it does that, okay? I do want to remind everybody we have a free webinar today. We're going to talk about automation. It's one of the things we're working on in our software. And we just wanted to have a webinar about the automation and the software. And all you have to type in to register is market movers. Marketmovers.co. That's all you have to type in to come to the webinar. Marketmovers.co. Okay. Marketmovers.co. That will register you for the webinar. Marketmovers.co. So now we're just watching what you want to do before reports. Keep an eye on the market. The gold market's opening right now. The bond market is opening right now. It's in the old days, there was a pit for everything. And in the old days, there used to be some great market. Did I spell it wrong? Market. I'll fix it. My mistake. Woke up this morning. Market. I'll show it again. I'll show it again. Marketmovers.co. Market. Marketmovers.co. There is a T in there. Marketmovers.co. Thank you, Rick. Marketmovers.co. Market. Sorry. Okay. In the old days, there used to be pits. You had a pit for everything. You had an oil pit, and the oil pit, oil opens at 9. And there used to be an oil pit, 9 o'clock opening trade. Now, probably some people are still trading the oil open, but it's definitely not the same as it used to be when there was a pit. They had pits for everything. And over time, over the past years, 5 years or so, the pits started disappearing. Possibly because of automated trading, computers. A lot of people lost jobs. That's why you always see former pit trader is running an education program, teaching people how to trade. Former pit trader. It's very, very common, a common way to sell their knowledge. It's like, I was in the pit. I must know more than everybody else. I don't know if you ever saw pictures of people in the pit. Lots of people screaming and yelling, and standing right next to each other. There wouldn't be any pits right now anyway because of the pandemic. But the pits were exciting and certainly a throwback to a different time. So we'll see if gold is going to respond to Empire State. My gut feeling is Empire State manufacturing. So the question is, how well has New York State been opening up their economy? If they've been opening up their economy really, really well, then manufacturing should be up, right? I mean, certainly New York City is not up, that area. There's been a lot of lockdowns, but I think a lot of manufacturing is still running. You know, a lot of factories are still running. It's hard to say. Some reports I can guess what I think the result's going to be. This report, I don't have an idea of which side of the numbers are going to come out. Are they going to come out on time is something I'm more interested in. And we're going to stay in the room after this report for the capacity utilization report at 9:15. It's got 2 minutes to go. So this was a report that before the pandemic, I really was liking it. The pandemic definitely put a crimp in some of the small reports that I was watching. And one of the biggest issues is that since the pandemic, gold has taken on a different kind of life and has become more difficult to trade. At times, it's been going in and out of being tradable and not tradable. Liquidity, not being enough orders, sometimes makes it hard to get good fills. That's why reports that trade with bonds, which have good liquidity, have been doing better. So let's see. The first step is, does Empire State Manufacturing come out on time? Remember that gold normally goes down on good news, but look how bullish gold is today in general. The markets are very bullish. Gold's up 215 ticks. The ES is up. So gold could struggle to go down because it's so bullish, right? Let's see if the news even shows up on time. So it did, and it was negative, which should drive gold up. It would be about a 20-second cancel at most. You're not getting a response. A 14-second response from gold. See how the stop moved automatically to break even? And it burst through. So I'm a little bit surprised. Empire State, I mean, that worked perfectly. That worked perfectly. And the ES didn't even fill, okay? You also had import and export pricing. But this is, I believe it's a response to negative New York State manufacturing data. It was 4.9 when they were expecting 6.9. ES you would cancel right away now. You wouldn't let it sit. There'd be no reason to keep that report on. And I'm a little bit surprised we have not been trading Empire State. My setup today was right on the money. And that setup came from, I would say, years of looking at this report. When this report is consistent to trade, that was the setup I would use. So let's note this setup. It's important. So I didn't, if you don't remove your software, the ES doesn't matter. You can remove that, okay? The ES, it didn't fill, it didn't move. The ES didn't really respond to Empire State Manufacturing, so you can remove it. Now, one thing you have to think about, are you dealing with a real news move? And we'll look at the video and we can question that, and I'll tell you why. Or are you dealing with just the fact that gold is so bullish and it's just continuing its move up? So you have to look at the video to answer that question properly. But for folks out there that are interested in doing their own testing, it's important to notate what the setup was today, because the setup worked perfectly. So you take today's setup and you use it as a baseline to start testing from. So the setup was a bracket of 6. Okay. Now remember, I said I had a report that I've been working on, right? Empire State Manufacturing. I said I had a report. So I take that, I get my report out. And I notate it, okay? And the first thing I can do is create, whoops, if I do it right, I can create an area Okay, it doesn't like that, so I'll have to fix it. So for now, today is 12, 15, 20. A win. I'll calculate the ticks later. And just for now, I would make a note that the report setup was perfect. And then the one extra thing we did is stop, moved, auto, break even. Okay, and that's important to know. And it hit target 2. That tells you it was safe to move the stop to break even without gold kicking back on you. So the setup I used was 4 ticks, 10 ticks on the second target, and a stop of 10. Okay. So I would notate my report. Target 2 of 10, a stop of 10. Now, I believe the cancel, I think 30 seconds is it. I would have to study some previous reports. 30 seconds might be a little bit long if it trades by itself. So let's look at the video and analyze this report. But so the setup was a bracket of 6, 1 contract for 4 ticks, 1 for 10, a stop of 10, and a break even. Target 1 stop, move your stop to break even automatically. Okay. Move your stop to break even automatically. I'm going to remove my strategy now. I'm going to set up, we're streaming. KW, if you want break even plus 1, all you do is type in break even plus sign 1. I'll show you. Break even plus sign 1. So in other words, if you're setting up a strategy, target 1 stop move, break even plus 1, break even minus 2, break even plus 3. Okay, and you can use upper or lowercase. Now, why didn't we trade it live? Just inconsistency over the time of the pandemic. Just hasn't been, and it's a trade that often doesn't trade by itself. If it moved the way that it did just now, regularly, I would try to convince my boss to create a DMM for it. No spaces, KW, right? No spaces. I would try to convince my boss to create a report for it. So let's look at the video. Let's see. Was this a news move? 100%? Let's see what we think. It's still moving up. It's still moving up. So at 8:30, that candle definitely looks like a nice looking news move. But let's look for a second and see what happened exactly at 8:30. The news came out right on time, it looked like. So here's the video. So we set up the trade. So what was interesting is that 10:04, the news came out. Gold had finished making new highs and started pulling back. And it pulled back, quite a bit, like 13 ticks or so. The news came out, and I was almost getting ready to cancel because you didn't get a news pop, right? You really had no response to the news. And then 14 seconds later, it fills you long. And notice how the stop moved to break even. Watch that. Let me explain what that target 1 stop move did. So after you get filled, the software puts the stop on the chart, right? So we get filled in 14 seconds, which is slow on a news report. There's your stop. When it hits the first target, the first X, watch the stop. It moves to your entry, moves to break even. Gold continues up, and the stop is now at break even. Look at that. That's a very nice feature of the software. The downside of that is if you get a huge move, but it pulls back after it hits the first target enough to hit your stop and take you out of the trade, you'll want to tear your hair out. That's the downside of moving the stop. The upside is it protects your first target. The first target was 4 ticks. It's a $40 protection because that was your target. Gold is $10 a tick. But does that look like a news move? It sort of just barely does. It barely looks like a news move to me. It's not a jolt, okay? It's not an absolute jolt. But you can see the news comes out, gold changes direction totally. I mean, I'd say, I would say that it was a news move on a report that's not as impactful as like a jobs report. And then it didn't pull back enough to take you out of the trade, and it kept going up and hit your target. And went quite a bit further than the target, which also, it just seems to make you think that gold's got something else going on here. Also possibly, right? It's possible. It is possible. And the ES didn't even fill, didn't do anything. Didn't respond to the news. So interesting reaction from gold. All right, so that was report number 1. And we have half an hour. Let's take 1 minute. Let me just fix something here. If you want to join us today, we're going to talk about our software in a free webinar. December is software month. Marketmovers.co. You can register for the webinar. Even if you can't come, just register and we'll send you a recording. Okay? Register and we'll send you a recording. Okay? Now, I will be back in 3 minutes. If all of you know me, you know I hate cold coffee. I wait half an hour before the next trade. I've got to heat my coffee up. So it is 8:44. I literally am heating my coffee up. I'll be back 8:47. I'll be back in less than 2 minutes. Okay, I'll be right back, folks. I'm not even going to turn off my mic. Be right back. Okay, thanks for your patience. Thanks for your patience. So if you want to join us for our webinar this afternoon, that's where to go. Our next trade, let me put up the slide. It's called Capacity Utilization, Industrial Production. It's also one of those small reports. Pre-pandemic was behaving really well. And we kind of made a slight change to the way we were doing things a little bit and just trading the reports in the room. If there's no report, we have not been trading, or we've been trading in a test account if we felt the reports were worth trading. So welcome to the Capacity Utilization Report, 10-minute trades trade room. Let me record this. Okay, so welcome to the Capacity Utilization Industrial Production Trade Room. That's what will happen on this report. My name is Lee Goldstein, Trading Director for 10-Minute Trades. Remember, all trades are for educational purposes. It is possible to lose money trading futures, and live streams on YouTube, Facebook can be delayed, so do not trade live money on live streams. And here we go. All right, so capacity utilization, also normally a report that I would have looked at gold. Canada just released their manufacturing sales. They were down. The Canadian dollar is 6C. This used to be a report we looked at. That was an 8:30 report. You could see that you had a little bit of a pop in the Canadian dollar. And again, you have an issue where if you weren't looking at it at the time, you have to see what the quality of that pop was. But look at the size of the pop. $20 to $60. So that's 40 divided by 5 is 8 ticks. You would have had a bracket of 3 or 4. So you have a 4-tick, a $20 move. Not all that impactful. Okay. Do you understand how I came up with that? So a lot of indexes, they don't go by tens. In other words, gold is like $1.10, $1.11, $1.12, $1.13, and each point is $10. Some indexes they go by fives. Okay. So like the Canadian dollar is 78,505. So one tick is 510, 520, 515, 520, 525, 530. So to calculate how many ticks moved, so you look at the last two numbers. If it's a 20 and it goes all the way up to 60, subtract 20 from 60 and you have 40 and divide it by 5. So it's an 8-tick move. Okay. And that shows you that Canada's manufacturing sales just was not much of a move. $20. Gold's pretty volatile. So we're looking for capacity, for the elements that make up capacity utilization and industrial production. You can see there's a few elements that make up the report. You also have manufacturing production in the report as well. So, I mean, you could see why I would have been interested to look at this report. You've got some interesting data that's going to be looked at. You've got industrial production year over year, month over month, manufacturing production. It's got potential to affect the market. So I've always been interested in this report. I've always watched it and got very close to trading it regularly. And pandemic. The pandemic has definitely made us trade bigger moving reports than smaller, because I don't know, a lot of people were not here for the pandemic, the beginning of it. In the very beginning of the pandemic, reports weren't moving at all because the world news was so overwhelmingly intense. It was overshadowing news reports. And it took a couple of months for news reports to start moving again. And the one amazing bonus about that, and we'll start to talk about that more this month because we're adding a feature to our software that we never used to have called the squeeze play. When the news reports weren't working, we came up with a different way of trading called the squeeze play. And that's going to be part of our software update. So we'll talk about that more and more this month. But I was always working on a report for capacity utilization. And I haven't looked at this report in a while. Because it has not been effective. I was looking at it on the ES. So we'll keep an eye on it on the ES. And in fact, we can set up a trade on the ES using my old setup. But I would also be interested, especially because of the way gold traded on Empire State, that gold looked tradable this morning. So I would set up a similar Empire State capacity utilization, are what I would call low-level reports. Reports that can be overwhelmed by world news, but when they have a very good offset, when their difference between what's expected and what comes out is big, they have the potential to give you a good trade. So the Red Book is one of those Fed reports. We've never had much movement out of the Red Book. And month over month is down. Year over year is a tiny bit up. So the Red Book, if you don't know what it is, you can click on it, right? Because not everybody knows what the Red Book is. And then if you scroll down, it's a sales weighted of year over year, same store sales growth, okay? Large US general merchandise retailers representing about 9,000 stores. So positive number is very good because it means store sales are good, and the US loves good store sales, okay? So the Red Book is, and I take it back, it's not a Fed report, so I stand corrected. The red book is a same store, is a U.S. general merchandise retailer report. It's never had much impact. That doesn't mean it's never going to have impact. Okay. The news was negative, so gold going down is not red book related, in my opinion. If you look at the results, let's look at the results. Let's make sure I'm right. Let me just get rid of the ads here. Hang on one second. So the red book down 2.2 month over month. So, I mean, store sales down. I mean, that's not a positive number, but the news is a little bit mixed because year over year, the numbers were up. Okay, so sometimes mixed news can create a little bit of an inconsistent move and a reaction to a news event. Okay. So we're looking for capacity utilization. Get our charts back to normal. It's a very cold day in Pennsylvania, but it's so beautiful. It's supposed to get a big storm tomorrow. I don't know if anybody, it's cold in Canada too, Chantal. I would expect it's always cold in Canada. I watched a fantastic show. I happen to be, I'm a musician. I love so many groups. So let me just set up my capacity utilization trade on gold. Let's see if we have a, bear with me. I want to look at one thing. I want to see if I've been recording the recent capacity utilization, which I often do. So let's look at last month's capacity utilization, see what kind of response it gave us. This was November 17th. Looking at it with gold, the report was late. You could see that it didn't show up. And the indexes, the ES and gold were kind of just sitting. That is the definition of inconsistency. If the news doesn't release, see, it came out very late, 35 seconds late. The news was a little bit positive. It was positive. That should make gold go down. You're really not getting much of a reaction. So just a non-report last month. The month before, Here's the month before on gold. The news came out reasonably on time that time. It was very negative, not very negative. It was a little bit negative. A little bit negative. And no response again to the news. So you can understand why I don't have motivation to put real money on the line right now. The report has not been responding. That was very close data, though. That's almost considered mixed, matching news. You know, matching news doesn't give you a big response. Eventually, it moved the right direction. Okay. It took 45 seconds. Sometimes these small reports don't appear to move, and then they might move a little bit late, but you don't get that news burst. You didn't get that news burst out of it. Let's look at one more. Let's look at September. September 15th. I think it looks like we traded it live in September on gold. It had been a report that I had liked a lot. News came out again. It's been late-ish, and the one bit of the capacity utilization was matching. The news was not really responding. Again, gold wasn't moving much, and it seems to move. It started moving in the wrong direction. It should be going up on that news, but the capacity utilization part of the news was matching. So it just, you could see the report just hasn't been very meaningful for quite a while. Let's look at August. Do you have to go as far back as August to get a good response? August 14th. Again, that time gold filled before the news came out, or before the public knew the news was out. The market might have known the news was out. Doesn't always mean investing.com has it together. Sometimes investing.com doesn't get the news properly. And that one, it looked like you got filled before. I mean, the news didn't even show up. I was looking to see if it came out on Financial Juice, and it does look like it came out on Financial Juice. And it was a slight positive bent. It was mixed news. Okay, the industrial production was down, and it was expected to be higher. So that was bad news. So you had mixed news there. Again, you just have a report that's been tremendously inconsistent. There would be very little motivation to put real money on this report today because of that. Now, I had a sample trade for the ES I had been working on, but I'm not so sure that I'm very interested in the ES for many trades if gold is working. If, that's a big if. But let's do a quick setup on this particular trade because I was working on it. It's a bracket of 5, target of 4 and 8 ticks. A stop of 8 ticks on the ES. And then if target 1 is hit, let's move the stop break even -1. Okay. If target 1 gets hit, move the stop to break even -1. Enter the trade at 9:15. And label it so we can tell the difference between this and gold. ES capacity, we'll call it. And then if you put the trade on, you get your logo, right? So I don't have a gold setup here. So gold, just from watching tons of reports and knowing the approximate size of this report, paying attention to the way gold's been moving, I would do, it's a, not a high level report. So I would do similar, but gold is volatile. So if you make your bracket too small on gold, it'll fill you before the news comes out. So I like a bracket at least of 6 on gold, on smallish reports. If you use 4 or 3 in these markets, the possibility of getting filled too soon exists. So I like to use a decent sized bracket to help keep me safe. Okay. I like a target of 4. I like a target of 12 for my second target. I think a stop of 10 is reasonable in these markets. And then an entry at 8:30. You could see the news is definitely on the late side these days. I don't like hardly any trade that enters early. So 8:30, I'm going to label it GC capacity so I know. Now, I think the market looks at the industrial production more than the capacity utilization these days. And they should change the name of the report, I think, to industrial production. That's my opinion. And with gold, just to show you the difference and things that can happen by moving that stop automatically. Remember the last trade, it didn't affect the trade negatively and it protected your profit. Why do you move the stop? You move the stop because if you hit your first target, the stop moves to break even. I'm moving it to break even -1. If the stop moves to an area, that'll protect your profit. What did I do wrong? If you get an immediate order, it means you didn't put your time in, okay? It means your time is wrong. If you get an immediate order, cancel that trade instantly and go check your time. See, I was thinking 8:30. It's 9:15 trade, not 8:30. Time already passed. That's why it triggered, okay? That's also why a 6-tick bracket, if you make a mistake like that, doesn't fill you. Entry time is 9:15. Now when I turn it on, it will not trigger, okay? We're going to check our sync. I like to check my sync every trade by going to the website time.is. and it puts my computer in sync. I have very good luck with the website time.is. It likes my computer very much and puts it in sync. So now I have 2 trades up in the control panel. One is labeled gold, GC. One is labeled ES. So if I need to cancel one, I can tell which is which. That's why I label them. And I think they're expecting 0.3 and 72.9 on capacity utilization. I don't have a clue what this news is going to be. Good, bad, indifferent. I really don't know. Some reports I have a good feel. If you stick around, folks, for a few minutes after this trade, I'll show you one of the trades that's on our weekly schedule, one of the reports that I was torn between making it a watch as opposed to having a trade room last night at 9 p.m. I'll show you that trade. It was a Chinese news report. I have a quick video of it. It was Chinese industrial production, retail news, fixed assets, unemployment rate, a lot of news on a Chinese report that moved monstrous, that looked like it moved monstrously last month. But but it was very hard to tell if it was a true news move or if it was just an unusual move. Now, gold is probably untradeable. This is untradeable behavior. Now, you have a minute, but you got to be on guard that, I mean, gold moved almost $3 on one candle. That's a very big move. Now, the only thing, if you were trading real live money and then gold obviously calms down dramatically after that, you might still trade. Some people would cancel the trade based on that pre-trade volatility. And you would not be making a mistake by doing that. Like something caused that. I don't think it's an early release of news or anything like that. The news came out not on time. It's a 6-tick bracket, and it looks like, you know, if I was trading real money, I would cancel. I don't like getting filled before the news comes out. Now I see the news, industrial production, it's almost matching. And I see it on Financial Juice. The forecast was for 0.3. There it is. Gold, see what happened is gold filled you on the wrong side early. The news is all positive. It should cause gold to go down. But gold, look at, I mean, gold is very difficult today. It's volatility wise. The ES is another canceled trade. No behavior, no reaction really to the news. So I would cancel the ES trade. It's just really not. I mean, you got a late move up. So if you were like me and you didn't cancel it, it moved late. Did it move to the news? It's hard to say that that's a yes. Gold miraculously hit that first target, and see how you protected yourself, even if you weren't paying attention. Like I was looking at the ES trade, gold. Remember, we put in that automatic move. So it protected your 4-tick profit, and gold pulled back down. And you could have used the software to keep yourself safer. Yes, yeah, maybe it cost you some money in this case, but it really looked like that we were filled early And remember, if the news is good, the news was somewhat good. It wasn't monstrous. It was almost matching on the important industrial production news. So it was not a gigantic offset, but it was positive, but it wasn't positive enough to drive gold down. You could see the ES filled and never really did much beyond that, but that would have been a canceled trade. I was moving up to cancel. You should have canceled it. Probably 15 seconds or so. You don't want to hang around waiting for a move that isn't coming. But just not much reaction from the ES at all. So you can combine the orders. Watch what the combine button does. It moves the orders together to the closest order to current price. It'll move my outside order to the inside order, the combine button. Makes it easier to exit a trade. Now I have both my orders combined. Rather than two separate orders, I have to move around, and I can drag it to break even plus a tick and see if the ES will move back up for a couple of ticks and give us a tiny profit, cover our expenses. The gold trade is over, so you could disable it. Okay. And the ES gave us one tick, two contracts. Okay. Gold was a $25 profit. Sorry. Gold was a 3-tick profit, I believe. $30. And then the ES was 25. Gold was 30. Let's look at the video. You'll see what moving the stop did. Before you go, if you like learning about what our software can do, join us at our webinar today. Okay, I've been explaining we're going to have a free webinar talking about automation software. So come visit the webinar. You can register by going to marketmovers.co. It's at 12:30 today. Okay. It's December holiday, and we're talking software all December. So 12:30 Eastern time, marketmovers.co. That will get you to the registration page. So let's look at the video of capacity utilization. Give me 1 second. Sometimes things happen that don't always make total sense. In this particular instance, let's look what happened and say what we think should have happened, possibly. So 9:15, the first thing that happened is the news was very, very late. Okay, so 9:15, there's our brackets. Hold on. Let's get the right report. Hang on. Okay, so at the time of the news, even Financial Juice did not quite have the news exactly on time. So you could see gold, 15 seconds. I would have canceled that if I was trading live. I don't like being close to getting filled when I'm not 100% certain what the news result is. Then the news comes out, but we're already in a long trade on gold. And the news is good. It should pull gold down. in theory, that's normally what happens. It doesn't, which sometimes occurs. The ES did nothing. Our long trade on gold, it's going to hit the first target. And then remember, we moved our stop to break even minus 1 tick. So we had a 4-tick target. So we protected 3 of those ticks by moving the stop. Okay. The stop moves. You could see. And then instead of continuing up, which isn't really a surprise that it didn't, because the news was good, that kind of drives gold down. And it went down, but we didn't lose money because our stop was moved to a place of protection. It protected your profit. So you actually would have made approximately $30 on that trade. The ES would have been a cancel, should have been a canceled trade. Okay. I wanted to show you what happened last night just because it's an interesting report, has the potential to move mountains. We trade copper on Chinese news last night. It was a 9 o'clock trade. I was thinking about having a trade room, and I was thinking to myself, oh, it's December. It's a small report that we never trade usually. I've been watching it. Sometimes it moves, sometimes it doesn't. 9 o'clock, the news comes out, and it's all almost exactly matching. Almost exactly matching. You could see the index I was trading, my setup bracket of 5, which is not monstrous. Now, a bracket of 4 would have filled you on the short side. And you probably would have been unhappy because it just didn't work. The trade just didn't work. Okay. So I would have canceled this trade. That was a cancel, official cancel on Chinese retail, industrial production, officially canceled trade. Okay. All right. So folks, come and join our webinar today at 12:30 Eastern time. And then our first trade of the week will be in the trade room for the API report at 4 o'clock. That will be a live trade. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Any questions? Anybody got the questions? Anyone want to ask me anything? I didn't even look to see who's here. So I don't see any questions. I'll see everybody at either 12:30 or I'll see you all at 4 o'clock for API. So have a good rest of your day, folks, and I'll see you all later. Okay? Take care, everyone.